Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to General Issues Committee. This is a special meeting, special for HSR today. I'm super excited. As we do have quorum present for today's meeting, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. We are now moving on to approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, can you advise of any items added to this agenda?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, there are 3 added delegations, 1 piece of written correspondence, all for item, which is item 8.1A. Presentation listed as to be distributed for item 8.1 has been added.
Excellent, thank you. Any discussion on this agenda? Councillor Kretsch?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and clerks double-checked this, that there was a technical error with one of the delegates getting their delegation request in, so I'm just adding that Delegate Carl Andrews be added to the list,
Okay.
because he put it in but didn't
Do I
get all
need
the
a
way there.
seconder for that?
Through the Deputy Mayor, we can take it as a seconder for the approval as amended, so
Excellent.
moved by Councillor Kretsch.
Okay, all right, and seconded by Councillor Kassar. Any other discussions on this agenda at all? Seeing none, this is a hand vote, please, so may I have your vote on the agenda as amended / presented? That looks like everyone, thank you, so that carries. Let's move on, so Carl Andrews will be added to delegation number 4 on this agenda. Declarations of interest, any declarations of interest, please? Seeing none, let's move on to delegations. So before we begin our delegations for today, members are reminded that questions of the delegates are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. And a note to our delegates, you have 5 minutes to complete your delegation. You'll hear a tone at the 4-minute mark, and then you'll also get an additional minute to finish up. So starting at 6.1, we will start with Eric Tuck from ATU. Is Eric online?
To the Deputy Mayor, no, Eric is not. My understanding was it was an in-person delegation as well, so.
Okay.
Maybe we could move on to the others and then check back.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Team, if you guys can, somebody can send a note to Eric, that'd be great, thank
Also,
you.
Deputy Mayor, I did receive a written printing of his delegation, so we do have that, and it will be added to the agenda afterwards, should he not be in attendance.
Okay, excellent, thank you so much. Up now is James Kemp, he's virtual, we did just see him, so welcome, James, oh, perfect. Anytime you're ready, James.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, Deputy Mayor and members of the General Issues Committee. Thank you for taking the time to hear from me today. I'm here to speak to you regarding report PW 25040, specifically the HSR Next report. We are fully supportive of acquiring new buses and improving the services in preparation for the LRT in, say, 10 years. New technology will hopefully improve the rider experience and make transit more accessible for all. But before I speak to the report, I have to mention that the HSR's newest campaign of more buses more often for you has created some problems for us. To pull this off, the HSR has had to put buses we were assured would not be used for anything but training back on the road in full service. 6 months ago, HSR informed us that number 10 series of Novas would be training vehicles only. I saw 2 10s running the Delaware route last week. These vehicles are not considered special, especially with the front door only policy. They don't have rear-facing displays. They don't show the stops. They're difficult to get around the stanchion. So for many reasons, this is an issue. Anyways, I just wanted to raise that. And we see a lot of buses on the order sheet, some 40-foot Novas, which are the most accessible of the 3 designs, but a significant increase of 30-foot vicinities and an order of 60-foot New Flyers. For the past 10 years, at least, the ACPD has been asking to speak to procurement regarding new bus purchases and the amenities they provide. I spoke to GIC on February 5th, 2024 regarding this issue and heard the director assure council that we would be consulted regarding procurement, but this hasn't happened yet. HSR maintains that there is no purpose to discuss things with us as they get their buses from a group purchasing arrangement and have no choice on the features they come with. However, a simple Google image search reveals that all municipalities have different configuration options. Most of them have robust grab bar installations around the scanners and fare boxes, but we do not. Now that we have moved to a front door only policy, are we going to purchase a few front door only configured buses with parallel PMD positions as a pilot to see if they work better? There are a number of mobility devices that can no longer board a New Flyer or the vicinities as they cannot make the very tight turn around the wheel well. HSR assures us that backdoor access is still an option, but when I have asked for drivers to do so, they insist they are not allowed and I must come on the front. I then have to demand they contact their supervisor to obtain permission, delaying the other passengers. HSR promised to create a card that indicated I had special permission and needed additional support, but that was almost 11 months ago and I've not received anything. Why do people need permission to use the buses as they were designed? I also proved to the HSR that many of us cannot use the scanners or fare boxes, but we are still fighting with bus drivers who insist we must do it and grumble when asked to provide assistance. We highlighted some significant issues with the 21 and 22 series Novas and the 23 series New Flyers with regards to the yellow call strips being inaccessible, and despite assurances it would be addressed, nothing has been done to correct this. The HSR is relying on a technicality of them being placed correctly in accordance with the AODA. However, this is along the same lines of abiding by the legislation while violating its spirit. We cannot reach them properly, no matter what their measurements are. We also highlighted significant issues with the seating placement on the 21-22 Novas. The pads are not providing us enough protection, and we are too far out in the aisle. We are also pleased with the hiring of new drivers, but we continue to have issues with poor driver training. We asked that a more robust accessibility training program be implemented as the current method isn't working. We are getting more aggression and confrontation from drivers than ever before, and they often insist they just had refresher training. It is our hope that if we can discuss these issues with procurement and hopefully find solutions to some problems before we take possession of new models, we would also like the opportunity to discuss these issues with the manufacturers themselves if possible so that they can improve new models. I'm attaching an appendix of images with various transit agencies that show the various differences in bus configurations. I also included some issues that we regularly have on board HSR buses. If anybody should have any questions about them, I'm always available to assist. I just did not think in my 5 minutes I would have time to review them all specifically. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, James, for your delegation. Any questions for this delegate? Councillor Taddison, please.
Thanks for your delegation, Mr. Kemp. You seem to have done a lot of research on this. What do you feel is the bus that has the best configuration for accessibility that's on the market today?
To be fair, the 40-footers are the most accessible at the moment. The wheel wells have been shifted well back as far as the vicinity of the New Flyer is concerned, which allows the door to be not just a regular door, but a 2/3 wide opening door, so it has a second extra door opening feature. It also allows for a much wider turning radius inside the bus, so scooters and rear-wheel drive vehicles do not have an issue getting on or off the front door of the Novas. The Novas have some other problems in the PMD position. The bigger issue is that, like I mentioned before, the New Flyers and the vicinities have their front wheel wells very far forward, which doesn't allow for a lot of room when you come in the door. Especially now that we put once we put the fare box in there, because we have quite a large footprint on the fare box, and the driver's shield comes out, extends a significant way, also impeding the turning radius. One of the images, I think, tries to show that. The question, though, is a weird one because we need all buses. I understand the HSR's need to have a smaller bus, have a larger bus, and have a regular size bus. The trick is trying to find a way to make the 60-foot New Flyers and the 30-foot vicinities more accessible to our needs, whether we change, say the fare box layout or whatnot. We have to think something. I hope that answers that.
Thanks for that answer. No more questions.
Thank you, Councillor Taddison. Seeing as there are no other speakers, thank you so much, James, for your delegation. In my haste to get this party started, I forgot to acknowledge who's in the room with me. Councillor Pauls, Councillor A. Wilson, Cassar, Taddison, Kretsch, Clark, and Councillor M. Wilson. Online with me is Councillor Matt Francis and Jeff Beattie. So let's move on to our next delegate, which is Ian Borsick, and I think he's online because I vaguely saw him quickly show up. There he is.
Hello,
Perfect.
thank you.
Anytime you're ready, Ian.
Yes, hello committee and council. My name is Ian Borsick. I'm the Executive Director at Environment Hamilton and delegating today with some excitement about the report before you today and encouraging you to move forward with this important investment and expansion of the service. Without going into the details of the report right now, I wanted to take a step back and really try to paint a picture for council, as most of our councillors are new and weren't actually on council back in the old days when the HSR was struggling significantly. In 2017, for example, the council at the time decided to not make really key investments in transit, and a few months after that decision was made, despite protestation from community members, we ended up seeing over 1,000 hours of missed service in October. Community trust in the service was taking a significant hit. There was, emergency meetings held in the very council chambers that you're in right now, where we discussed this with HSR staff, ATU 107 drivers, and community members to talk about how we could restore faith in the system. And it's taken multiple directors and years to get to the point where we're at now, which is the HSR being a system that Canadians around the world look to as a good system that needs to be emulated elsewhere. Through the pandemic, we saw significant ridership be maintained in Hamilton, and that's because the people who use the HSR in Hamilton are essential workers. While many of us were working at home or not working at all, Hamiltonians needed to continue to use the HSR to get to where they were going, and we saw a maintaining of ridership at levels that was not seen in most other cities. Through the pandemic, Environment Hamilton and many other organizations from Hamilton joined a national coalition called the Keep Transit Moving Coalition that sought to see federal and provincial investments in transit to maintain transit services in all municipalities that were facing what was called at the time a death spiral. The HSR survived that. The HSR bucked the trends, and the reason for that was because we maintained investment, we maintained service, and we had people continuing to use that service now. Ridership levels have continued to surge. We've seen people use the service, and it's absolutely vital that we continue to expand this. We're catching up after decades of underinvestment. This is not just one or two councils that decided not to maintain investment in the HSR. We're talking about decades, and we're still playing catch up now. The BLAST network has existed as a concept for an incredibly long time in the city of Hamilton, and Hamiltonians have been waiting for this rapid service for decades at this point. We are moving forward with the LRT. It is absolutely vital that we build up the system, we reroute services, so then that way we can feed into the LRT. But more importantly than that, Hamiltonians deserve good service that can get them all across the city of Hamilton. And this next step with HSR is what is going to get us there. It's absolutely vital that we move forward with this investment. It's absolutely vital that we move forward with this expansion and improvement of service, because this is what people rely on, and this is what people are using today. We're not, talking about increasing ridership and, the chicken or egg scenario that we've had debates of in Hamilton for a very long time now. It's clear. If we invest in the service, if we provide the service to Hamiltonians, they will use it, and they will use it to get to work, they will use it for recreation, and they'll use it for everything else in their lives that they need. I really encourage council to move forward with this and keep up the momentum that we've been keeping going here in the city of Hamilton. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for your delegation, Ian. Any questions for this delegate? Seeing none, thank you so much for your delegation.
Thank you, council.
Welcome to Mayor Horvath, too. Up now is Carl Andrus. Carl, come on down to our podium. And I think Carl also has a presentation, so we'll get that queued up for him. And Carl, just a reminder, the thingy to move the desk up and down is on your left-hand side, so. Yeah. Okay, and we'll just give us a minute to get your mic on. Anytime you're ready.
Just before I start, I want to thank the clerk and this council for accommodating my delegation request, minus some technical errors on my part. And additionally, I have a second request of this committee. My presentation is going to take about 8 minutes. I would ask if that's okay, if you would move for that additional time for me, please.
Councillor Maureen Wilson and seconded by Councillor Esther Pauls. I think I need this to be an electronic vote. No worries. Sorry, Angela, just as you walked away. And it's also the first vote of the day, so it's going to, we're always going to have hiccups on the first vote of the day. Vote is still loading. Vote is up. Mayor's a yes. Councillor Francis is a yes as well. That carries 11 to 7. 11 to 0. Sorry, 11 to 0.
And I've lost my,
Bah.
thank you.
Welcome, Councillor McMeekin. Okay, anytime you're ready, Carl.
I can actually move this down now. What a delight it is to be here. I am, of course, still Carl Andrus, Executive Director of the Hamilton Community Benefits Network, a longtime delegate, avid bus rider, and transit activist. I am so delighted to discuss HSR Next, a plan to move, pun slightly intended, Hamilton forward. This long-delayed reimagining project to replace the previous 10-year transit strategy ran into a few minor obstacles. A few-year delay in funding the almost 13-year transit strategy. The global pandemic probably had much more significant influence, not to mention the on and off again LRT project, which some in the city would love to see canceled. I guess that's why the plan is HSR Next and not LRT Ready, as was the draft language used in earlier iterations. I have to congratulate the staff for years of hard work, but also for bringing you the most austere-minded transit proposal they could. With recent talk of FTE hiring freezes, a looming election, and the need to staff the new bus barn, or operations and storage facility, this plan takes incremental and measured steps to improve transit slightly. As a registered lobbyist on public transit, and understanding every councillor here wants to be mindful of spending and generate the best value for our tax-paying residents, this is a solid report, if that is your sole criteria. I would encourage you to vote for what is before you. But as a way to substantially improve public transit, the activist in me has different thoughts. The listed capital asks for the new extended rapid routes 2026 for A line, 2027 for S and E line, 2028 for L line, and up to the T line in 2032 seem to lack some vital capital investments to make them truly rapid. Hamilton has had express bus service since the 80s on the B line, and it has never seemed very express because although it bypasses some stops, it never, except for a short-lived bus lane, had dedicated lines and lanes and signals bypasses. The type of service required to make a bus not stuck in traffic behind cars, but truly rapid. In fact, staff thought so when they applied for PTIF funding for transit priority measures at the cost of $3.8 million for the A or T line back, as you'll see, in 2019. The capital cost estimates in this 7-year plan do not include any plans for actual rapid transit lines, new buses, signposts, concrete pads, and possibly some yet undeclared transit hubs and terminals. However, nothing has been done to make the new Blast X actually rapid. Costs, if not included in your long-term capital budgeting, now won't be DC eligible, as staff have shown that these expansions are for expected population growth. They should be. They could, if budgeted now, provide staff in the city with a head start on future applications to the Canada Public Transit Fund, but they seem timid and focused on fleet requirements and meeting austerity measures that might cost Hamilton more in the long run. I cannot continue without taking a moment to rant. Staff have done good work to bring forward a plan they hope will meet your austerity needs. But in Appendix E, I note 2 critical challenges. 1, bus wraps. They suggest the overall public sentiment was neutral on bus wraps. That is far from true. Every transit rider I know, every person I see on a bus, struggles to see out the windows, to see their stop. It makes the riding experience far less enjoyable, and it does deter people from transit. Here is a section of online comments I have posted for you to clearly see that directly contradicts what staff has said in section 2 on the impact of bus wraps. Another table in Appendix E shows a decrease in service across the old city of Hamilton in kilometers serviced, which is then passed on to other areas that also desperately need transit. You can see that the chart at the bottom, as well as in the presentation coming. They show a decrease in service frequency to 10 to 20 minutes on rapid, 15 to 30 on collectors, etc. If you examine the current number 2 Barton and number 1 King frequencies displayed on screen, you will see they are actually a downgrade. Right now, I take the number 2 bus, and most of the day, there is an 8-minute or less service frequency. The King, maybe 12 minutes. Those are downgrades in service delivery levels. I will get to why that isn't wise shortly. The HSR once dominated ridership, delivering 31,482,000 boardings in 1986. Here, a cost adjusted mostly to modern dollars, shows riderships and boardings. As you can see, and the previous delegate mentioned, unlike other communities, we have rebounded and continue to rebound well from pandemic service loss, better than many other Ontario municipalities. However, in 2005, Hamilton's population was around 467K. Brampton's was 234K. Hamilton's ridership was then around 21 million boardings. Brampton's was only 10 million. By 2023, despite the pandemic, Brampton had a ridership of approximately 41 million trips and exceeded 45 million trips in 2024. Ours, just around 20 million or so in 2024. They have grown as a city, and their CMA is now larger than ours. But Brampton started beating our 1986 service delivery in 2018. And the way they did it, fast, rapid, reliable transit. Transit people could count on to get to work, to know that if they went to a stop, a bus would be along in 5 to 10 minutes. Remember now I mentioned service frequency is planned to change for both rapid and collector streets, increasing up to 30 minutes between buses. In Brampton, they could ditch their second car and use public transit for doctor's appointments, schools, and work. They did this with bus lanes, true rapid transit that made sure that when you went to a stop, if you missed a bus, the next one wasn't more than 5 to 8 minutes away. The system is so well used that critics are calling for far more investment and growth. Staff reports Hamilton is expected to grow by nearly 240,000 more people and 140,000 more jobs by 2051. But the transit plan before you, while bold for 2003, does not go nearly far enough to build the kind of world-class transit system we need now. Every year you delay, investing in building a fulsome transit system ends up costing you more. In 2019, it was $3.8 million to create a BRT light style system on the A-line with federal dollars invested. I imagine that cost is much more today. What will it be like in 2030? To move people from cars to transit, transit needs to be nearly as good as driving. This plan will make the HSR incrementally better, but it will not generate the kind of system future Hamilton will need. It will not make needing no car or at least a second car possible for those outside the old city of Hamilton. It will not gain the massive boost Brampton has seen. Its lack of ambition and capital spending means you might be denied future development charges, which could allow growth to pay for itself, and miss out on the gold rush of applications for the new Canada Public Transit Fund. I can bet Brampton, Ottawa, and Toronto already have approved capital projects just waiting to be submitted. Be bold. Think bus lanes and frequent service. This is your chance to make our transit better than it was in 1986. Please consider my remarks as you deliberate today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl, for your delegation. Speakers list is open if there's any questions for this delegate. Seeing none, thank you so much, Carl, for your delegation. Welcome, Councillor Nan, to the meeting. Carrie, could we pull down that presentation? Up now, we have Eric Tuck. Eric, come on down. You're the next lucky contestant. Clerks are just pulling up, I think, a document. Okay. Oh, give us a sec. Mic is hot.
Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, City Council. I'm Eric Tuck, for the record, of ATU Local 107, representing over 1,000 proud HSR employees, unionized, who have for a century and a quarter operated, maintained, and administered the HSR transit system here in Hamilton. I also serve as the Vice President of ATU Canada, and I serve on the ATU Can-Am board, representing transit workers nationally and internationally with over 37 years of on-the-job experience here at HSR. I stand before you today in support of the HSR Next Plan. Although I believe we could have presented a much more progressive plan with greater expansion and increased frequency, I must recognize the fiscal challenges facing Hamilton taxpayers and the City Council's challenge to present a budget that's fiscally responsible while at the same time meeting the needs of our ever-growing and expanding city. This plan contains the resources and staff to immediately expand and open up a long overdue second bus barn and maintenance facility that is necessary to address the overcrowding and, quite frankly, dangerous working conditions at our current facility. Given the fact that our current facility at the MRTC is operating at about 40% over its designed capacity, we are faced with overcrowding, which results almost daily in emergency walkways and fire lanes being temporarily blocked, as well as buses coming and going from all directions. Not to mention the inefficiencies created in the maintenance department and service lines, as well as the added deadhead times to and from the start and finish at the end of the lines. As you may recall, in 2019, we identified this serious need and went cap in hand to both the federal and provincial governments to secure the close to $400 million to bring this much-needed capital project to reality. And we cannot afford any delays in opening this facility once it is made available for occupancy, which I understand is tentatively scheduled for the beginning of spring 2026. When it comes to service enhancements, you will notice that once you drill down into the HSR Next Plan, there is not a significant increase in the frequency of service. However, there is an overall increase in the area coverage and expanded service delivery through the route redesign that adds hours of service and mileage. If you consider that HSR has not had a significant route redesign of our transit system or the service area in about 50 years. This is why HSR and McMaster partnered and at significant cost did an extensive survey of transit users and their travel patterns, along with an in-depth study of current and future growth, and came up with the recommendations you will find driving the changes in this proposed plan. I remind Council that transit is the lifeblood of any successful city across the globe, and it is a major economic driver and stimulus to the economy. In fact, several studies have shown that an average return of $5 to $7 for every $1 of investment, not to mention the environmental and social benefits. We must be considerate of the work, efforts, and financial resources invested by HSR Re-envision and customer outreach team, along with our community partners who took the time to participate by the thousands to fill out and return these surveys and questionnaires. This plan and its recommendations are both fiscally prudent and responsive to the bare bones needs of the city to meet the basic transit demands of our city for the next few years, while being considerate of the current fiscal uncertainty we are facing with the U.S. tariffs and the instability of the global economy. I believe now it is more important than ever to move forward with this modest transit investment that will generate a sound return while creating good employment opportunities and provide a healthy foundation for HSR to drive Hamilton's future. In closing, I will ask that all council members to vote in favor of adopting today's HSR Next plan so that we may continue to meet the transit needs of this ever-growing and expanding city. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for your delegation. The speakers list is open right now, so if there's any questions for Eric. Seeing none. Thank you so much, Eric,
Thank you.
again.
I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the staff and the work that they've done on this plan.
Excellent. I think that they heard you. Right, guys? Yeah, you did. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. All right, so we have exhausted our delegations list. At this time, may I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the delegations on this item? Mayor Horvath and Councillor Kretsch. This is a show of hands vote, so may I please have your vote by hands? And that looks like everyone. That carries. Thank you. We are now moving on to item 8. These are items for information. This is 8.1 HSR Next, moving Hamilton forward. And this does include a staff presentation. So before we get started on that, before I ask Jackie Kennedy to do a quick intro of this, I have been told that it's approximately 15 to 20 minutes for this presentation. So I wonder if we can ask for a vote to extend to, say, 20 minutes, just to be a little more safe and generous. Councillor McMeekin and Councillor Kassar, this is an electronic vote, so may I please have your vote electronically? And the vote is up.
Councillor Francis, are you still with us?
I don't see him. Okay. That vote carries 12-0. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to ask GM Kennedy to actually introduce this for us, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wang. Jackie Kennedy, Acting General Manager of Public Works. Good morning, members of council and Mayor Horvath. Thank you for having us here this morning on a Monday morning, a little early start, and I appreciate everyone's making time for this important report. As you can tell with folks behind me here in the first row, there is a lot of excitement from the Transit Division, in particular for this next stage of transit growth and service for our city. Nancy Purser is going to take us through the details of it, but I'll just do a quick introduction about it, that this plan really looks at growth and ridership as a critical service for our city and is aspirational. It dovetails onto the 10-year plan that we've been working on for some time, and in fact replaces that last final year of the 10-year plan with HSR Next. And it does offer some savings in the forecast or the budget outlook that you heard about last week, if adopted, relative to what the 2026 outlook would have included from the 10-year plan that we've been operating on and rolling out steadily. This plan that you're going to hear about today is aspirational and staged. So it has some nimbleness to it that can be revised as we go and taken on and adapted as things progress. As we do that, we will bring back reports to council at least annually on how things are going and what the forecast for the next year looks like. And we'll also be working closely with council as services are changed. So when we have a change to be stepped through, close collaboration with councillors before public is part of the plan for this work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nancy and look forward to hearing what you have to say, Nancy. Thanks.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor, and members of committee. I'm Nancy Purser, Acting Director of Transit. As Jackie noted, the management team is join us today. Some of them are here to answer technical. They're all here to support. I have a couple of new members of the management team. Jason Simmons, our Manager of Operations, and Jeff Ellis, Manager of Fleet. Both have been hired to support the opening of the second facility. I do appreciate the opportunity to present HSR Next, moving Hamilton forward today. This is the implementation plan that will bring the conceptual network to life. It is a city-building project designed to support LRT, improve access to equity-deserving groups, and to bring transit to our many business parks and employers. And I have to admit that all of the delegates pretty much took all of my speaking notes, so thank you to them. How do I move this one? No,
I see that. Doesn't really surprise me today. There you go.
technical difficulties.
Just you roll the mouse, roll bar.
Oh, okay. Hamilton is expected to grow significantly by 2051, with 240,000 people and 140,000 more jobs added. Transit demand is impacted by where housing and employment growth is occurring. The new network better matches the current growth and future growth patterns and travel destinations. Shifting the population growth as it occurs to transit will help mitigate congestion and address the climate emergency. How did we get here? HSR Next is the output of work that began in 2013. The approved redesign network was created with technical support from McMaster University and input from over 27,000 customer touchpoints. HSR Next does lay out how we will deliver the network over the next 7 years, including annual service changes, funding, and the communication strategy. This is the conceptual network that was approved in 2023 with a couple of adjustments based on further consultation in Waterdown and Stony Creek. This network significantly improves transit to the areas historically underserviced. It brings rapid routes to all areas of the city. Most journeys will require fewer transfers and new route types that will allow for fast and frequent service. Minimum frequency of 30 minutes is part of the service enhancements, and there will be HSR connections at every LRT stop. We've also improved connections to regional transit with a focus on West Harbour and Confederation Go to recognize our place in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area and the Golden Horseshoe. With the introduction of new route types, there is a requirement for updated transit service standards, which are part of the report and part of the recommendations. With different routes, we are now going to have them reflect their own parameters, so based on the type of service that we're offering. Other changes that are included is service and proximity and connectivity. Again, we've got more focus on regional connections, both with GO Transit and Burlington Transit. This proximity also reflects the unique offerings of on-demand service, how it expands the catchment areas. Hours of operation has increased on Sundays to 1 a.m. from midnight. And the frequency, again, is set out by route type, with late evening service improved from 1 hour to 30 minutes. Bus stop placement is based on route type, where rapid route is designed for speed, therefore the stops are further apart to minimize stopping times. And local routes, again, are closer together, is designed to move about neighborhoods and provide for greater access. Passenger loads, this is a sense of the number of people that require or the demand for transit, but it also speaks to passenger comfort. Therefore, productivity numbers and crowding numbers are lower for rapid routes because people travel longer on rapid routes. So we want them to, most of them to have a seat, where local transit, they're only on the bus for a short time, so they could withstand some standing. On-time performance, reliability is a valued aspect of transit, and the updated standard to 1 minute early and 5 minutes late from a 2 minute early, 5 minute late previous requirement. Additionally, no buses will leave a terminal or a hub early at all. We've added equity as a new standard, which we will continue to evolve as we move through the plan. One of the things that we will be looking at as we implement and beyond is when routes are reviewed, one of the first lenses we'll look at is the income level of neighborhood the route service, so that we don't inadvertently reduce service to equity deserving groups. This implementation, the implementation phasing has ensured that the service standards are reached, and the costing that we have developed for this plan reflects this. So our rapid routes are at 10 minutes, our collectors are at 15, and our local service is at 20 minutes. I'm highlighting here our big moves. And when they are going to occur. These new services will attract new customers. The rapid routes will, well, not as competitive if we had bus lanes, but will be competitive with the car. And on-demand routes will address first mile, last mile concerns. Note that in 2026, the on-demand being added in Stony Creek and Glanbrook will replace the Transcab that is currently offered in those areas. And then we'll move through all the other years to introduce on-demand. The hubs are planned that will support connections required for the varying route types. I'll note that Appendix A denotes Winona Crossing as an on-street hub, but staff have costed that in this plan as an off-street hub. The details of all service changes, including the collector and local routes, will be confirmed annually through the budget process based on analysis done over the year and information gathering. Ridership is why we're putting transit out there. We want more people to get on the bus than get in cars. So this forecast is based on population growth and service increases. We anticipate ridership to grow by the end of 2032 by 10 million. And I want to note that full ridership does not occur in the year, maybe not even the year after the service has been implemented. It takes people time to change their travel behaviors. If we're going into areas where transit has not been available historically, most people will have cars. It will be that waiting game until they reevaluate, do I need a car? And with transit there, they'll be able to make that decision. A number of factors could, of course, impact these ridership forecasts. Post-secondary enrollment, with the change in international students, we're seeing lower enrollment. Social economic factors, changes in our fare strategies, and then shifts in growth areas. For this plan and the implementation at this point, our fare policy has been maintained as the one approved through the 10-year local transit strategy. And that is because there are two outstanding pieces of work regarding fares that will be coming in the next year. The first one being the Fair Assist pilot will be coming to Public Works Committee in the fall, in November of 2025. And there is currently a consultant-led user fee review happening that will report back in the fall of 2026. An interesting piece from the McMaster work that was done is as they reached out to customers, they got a pulse check on a willingness to pay. And by and large, respondents said that if there's faster, better direct service, they would be willing to pay more. So this information has been shared with the consultants to consider in the user fee work. Operating costs. We've implemented this plan over 7 years based on how phasing was determined. Phasing was, again, determined to keep it as simple as possible for customers, so we only change routes once. And where routes are interrelated, we wanted to change them all at once. So across the city, again, transit has expanded to all the corners. It's a 568,000 more service hours, or a 55% increase. When we roll into 2033, as this is an annualized plan, it's $11 million new rides. We expect 450 new FTE. This will generate additional revenue of $29 million. It'll add gross costs of $88.2 million in each year. We've included a 2% annual cost escalation for a net cost of $59.2 million, or a cumulative 4.56% on the levy. The costs in here, as I stated, have been annualized to reflect that we will add service in the fall of each year. Should this be approved, these figures will be added as part of the multi-year budget as a placeholder to reflect that transit will go up. However, we will be back on an annual basis to confirm the exact details of what service is changing, what routes are changing, the actual costs, and any FTE and capital requirements. As Jackie noted, when we compare year one cost of HSR Next to what was presented in the budget outlook for year 10 of the 10-year local transit strategy, there is a slight savings of approximately $300,000. That is partly due to, in our first year of HSR Next, lower service hours. Cost of capital for implementing this, we have buses, and most of these costs have a funding source. Our buses will be purchased using the remaining Investing in Canada Infrastructure program, along with our vehicle reserve, which has been made available for use due to the Canada Public Transit Fund that promises $62.2 million. Over a 10-year period. The stops and hubs are funded using various sources, including the Investing in Canada Infrastructure program, Canada Community Benefit program, block funding, and will require another source as we are $664,000 short, but we will continue to look for that funding over the course of the program in order to have it covered. Staffing for this program, we need 450 more FTEs is what the program is calling for based on this costing. This 85.7% of those FTE are frontline staff. There are bus operators, our mechanics, service line, and the required supervisory and administrative support for those frontline employees. Given the growth of transit, a new structure may be required to ensure sufficient senior oversight across HSR functions to facilities like operations, fleet, and business initiatives. The second facility, as Eric mentioned, with funding from all levels of government, is our key to unlocking additional growth in Hamilton. The construction is progressing. This is a summer picture of 2025. We are at 85% completion. Occupancy has been slightly delayed due to a late identification of required ventilation equipment. It will not delay our plan to be fully operational there in the fall of 2026, but we will take some time. It'll give us some time to allow for tours and open houses for council, our staff, and the community. This is big change. It's a lot of change internally for us in these routes, and there's going to be many things we're going to have to manage through it. Again, the phasing is designed to change the route once, to remove confusion and reduce the complexity of the changes. We will design the hubs up front and implement them as we phase in advance of the service that will require that hub. Again, costs have been spread out as best as we can. There are a couple of large years where the grouping of routes suggested they should all be done at the same time. Again, to ensure everything remains on track, detailed capital and operating and FTE requirements will be confirmed annually through the budget process. And we will use our updated service standards to help monitor and manage that added change, and also help determine at what level we introduce service in the upcoming years. So how we'll do this, the annual service plan process is a new process that will be introduced this year. We'll be coming to council in November with the full details of year one, should this plan be accepted. We will, based on all the data we have available, we are able to look at multiple switches to either speed up or slow down the pace of implementation. So as I said, this plan is costed out at hitting the full standards. So we could look at adding a rapid route in peak periods only, so 7 to 10 and 3 to 8, instead of filling in the entire service. Or we can also look at productivity of routes and leaving them like a collector at 20 minutes instead of increasing it to 15, depending on what the data is showing us and how well the system is being utilized. Our annual service planning, as we get rolling, will begin 18 months ahead of time to cover off all our different requirements, including bus requirements and those items. And we are doing that to ensure council is informed well in advance of what the plan changes are, which will allow us to get out to customers well in advance to advise them of how their travel pattern may change. We will be reporting on key performance metrics that will be generated through the program, through our service standards, as part of the annual service plan. As I mentioned, communication is going to be key. This is one of the most significant service changes made in the history of HSR, and communication will be frequent and it will be early. Many stakeholders will be impacted by these changes, and it will be a challenge to get the information to everyone. Together with corporate communications, a strategy has been created with a number of tactics, including items like a dedicated webpage that will show all the details as they're planned of what the changes will be. We have access to city and HSR social media, paid ads, direct marketing, direct mailing, and outreach at major stops. This is also a great opportunity to attract new riders, and so we're going to build on the Try Transit campaign to get out and talk to them. And while we're adding and changing service, we're also going to have to deal with major construction projects that are going to happen concurrently. So there's going to be dual communications required and a lot of extra staff available to support customers to get them to navigate through the system. When we invest in transit, we're going to benefit many city priorities. Invest in Hamilton, employers will have great access to workers with 16 times the average increase in access to business parks. Youth will see an increase in transit of 1.28 times, seniors 1.15 times, and in our residential zones, there'll be an increase of 2.6 times. This investment in transit benefits all Hamiltonians as the network strongly improves transit's offerings in high-growth areas. And at completion, they will be able to reach 12% more jobs and 14% more people. The more a person can reach by transit, the more likely they will choose transit.
Nancy, I know you have 2 more slides after this, so we're already at our 20 minutes, so 2 more minutes?
1 minute, yeah. I'll talk faster.
So do we still need to vote for an extra 2 minutes? If committee's okay, all right. I think we're gonna be okay, just talking faster. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the investment in transit benefits the individual who can now access more jobs, who can choose a more environmentally friendly mode of transport, and who can get to an appointment on time. All demographic groups will see an improvement in transit access, and through this chart, specifically looking at female, non-binary, and non-traditional households at 12% and 14% respectively. HSR Next provides enhanced access for Hamiltonians. HSR Next makes it easier for employees to choose transit for their commute. HSR Next answers the call from businesses and major employers to improve transit. HSR Next improves network connectivity through the city and to the region. HSR Next will help transform the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. At this time, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder to do receipt of the presentation and approval, and then we'll open up to discussions. That way we can give Nancy a chance to sit down and that sort of thing. So may I please have a mover and a seconder, again, for the receipt of the presentation, and then also to put the reports on the floor, please. Mayor Horvath and Councillor Kassar. Discussions, speakers list is open. I currently have Councillor Crutch, Pauls, Jackson, and Beatty. Councillor Crutch, please.
My first question is rather a broad one, and then I have some more specific questions. We hear a lot about savings that we're trying to achieve here, but of course, and I won't cite every study, there are lots of studies that talk about the savings that transit provides as a service, the kinds of things we save when we have dedicated bus lanes, for instance, in terms of our infrastructure costs, the savings residents have when they use transit over using other modes of transportation, how we have multimodal links between bike share, transit, these kinds of things, which are also savings, and of course the impact on the environment. And so how are you factoring those things into the savings that you're looking for here, and how does that work out in terms of the plan with respect to, yes, we want to be fiscally prudent, but we also want to make sure that we're capturing as much savings as we can from those kinds of incentives and putting world-class transit service in our city.
Director, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, those types of savings have not been captured at this point in the plan. We do, as we move forward, plan to start reporting on greenhouse gas savings, health indicators, as well as road usage and savings in road repairs and all of those types of things that can have a saving because more people are using transit.
When will we see more of that information?
Okay, there's a bit of a shuffle. Can you just also introduce yourself?
Good morning, folks. Nick Shalou, Manager of Transit Strategic Planning. I think you'll see us looking to the Metrolinx business case guidance for how we structure this. That looks at wider benefits like vehicle kilometer savings, GHG reductions, a lot of what you're speaking to. It will take a bit of time for us to build that in. I don't think you'll see it in our next annual service plan for November, but definitely by the time we're doing our next long-range plan, the next 5, 7, 10 years, it would be part of that process.
Sorry,
Okay, I
missed your
think
name.
there's a lot to consider here, so I'll just add a few more things, if you don't mind,
Okay.
to suggest that when we're thinking about the way we plan our transit networks, it also impacts the way that development works. It impacts the way affordable housing is shaped. It impacts property tax assessment, for instance. So if we had a greater assessment as a result of the way the transit route is planned, that would also create revenue for the city. I think it's really important for us not only to talk about the costs, but also about all the implied revenue that's going on here. There's a ton. And so I'll say for me, I'm very excited about the plan, but I think it's imbalanced in terms of the fact that there's a lot of opportunity to represent here and a lot of discussion that we could talk about with respect to how we can save. And of course, there's the elephant in the room, area rating for transit. And of course, I'm very keen about having that discussion and not letting it be the perennial Hamilton political football that goes on forever. Not going to have it today, but it should be happening at some point, frankly, because until we have the bravery to have that conversation, it's going to continue to loom over everything we do. And also, I think it has significant cost impacts for this. So for me, this isn't a fully costed plan, but I'm excited about what you're proposing and the timeline you're proposing it on and the kinds of improvements you're making. The other questions I have are specific about some of the things that actually Delegate Andrus raised. When you look at service right now and you think about how service works for most of the routes in our city, that really centers around the downtown, actually. So when I got some stats from previous director of the department in 2022, 2023, what I learned was interesting. Not only do we have a population that's younger here, and so folks are taking transit more often for school, whatever it might be, but we have a huge commuting population of walkers and a group of 19.4% who rely on public transit. So 20% of the people who live downtown rely on public transit as opposed to 7% citywide. That says a lot right there, right? So the fact that we want to have more people relying on transit, 68% of all the transit routes citywide are in Ward 2, right? And we have 8.3 plus million bus boardings a year here, 26% of all the boardings. I ask that because it looks like if I look at the Appendix E, some of the tables there, we're seeing by 2032, there's less bus service in Hamilton and more bus service elsewhere. And so I want to make sure this isn't just some weird recalibration where the area where the need is greatest is suddenly losing a bunch of bus service to make it so that other people can have bus service. We should be expanding bus service for everybody so everyone has access to the same quality of service we have downtown. Can you explain this? Is it about LRT? Like, how do I understand that number of 60? I think it's 66% at the bottom of that table.
Sure, happy to. Through the chair, one of the best ways to understand our level of service are the access by transit tables. That's measuring what somebody across the city can get to, whether that's jobs, grocery stores, or healthcare. And I think the interesting thing you're seeing in those tables is this is raising everyone's boats. It's a rising tide for all demographic groups across the city. You do see in the maps that the central core is not growing like some of the outer areas which are seeing really strong service increases. That's twofold. One is, yeah, we're removing a lot of those duplicated bus routes with this network redesign, but the other part is the change with LRT and the overall densification of the city. A lot of the travel east-west through downtown will shift to LRT. This network is assuming a 6-minute frequency at peak on that service, but there is room to go up much faster, which increases what people can reach. We also know in the inner core, we have more people, to your point, walking and using cycling. And there's a natural trade-off there as well as those shorter distance trips use micro-mobility and we take the longer trips.
So if I understand it in table 8 there, which is estimated kilometers by area, I shouldn't understand that reduction from 81.3% in 2023 to being 66% in 2032 to mean we're going to get less bus service, just that that service is changing. I think the only other community that's kind of other to standstill or going down is Dundas. Everybody else I think is going up. And so what you're saying is that the increased number of kilometers in these other areas are actually going to provide increased service. We're going to reorganize ourselves downtown. There's going to be LRT, other kinds of things happening, and that's why we're seeing a shift.
Yeah. apologies for missing that. The area rating, it is increasing across all areas.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you. So, Manager, why don't you come on down to, you might have more questions? And I actually missed your name, I'm sorry. Nick, Manager Nick, long-term planning. Cool, awesome, thank you. So we do now have Councillor Pauls, followed by Jackson, Beatty, Cassar, Taddison, Clark, and then Councillor Alex Wilson. So Councillor Pauls, please.
Thank you. I'm just, through the chair, I just was, I had my page and now I don't know where it went. But anyways, I like what Eric Tuck said, that he said HSR is the lifeline of every city, and that is very true. And I appreciate that. But my question is, I noticed, I don't know what page I saw, but we're going to have 79 new buses. First of all, can I ask what kind of buses we're going to put on? Are they the big ones, the smaller ones? What type of buses?
Director, please.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. We're right-sizing the fleet for the service the different service types that we're offering. So we will continue to have our 40-foot buses. We'll be adding more 60-foot buses or articulated buses, and we'll be looking at small buses. They may not be 30 feet, they may be smaller than that, depending on the neighborhoods. What ones we choose on that one, as we're not going to be buying the same 30-foot regardless, we will work with the ACPD committee in order to make sure that it is accessible.
Thank you for that. And my second question is, when we get our LRT, we don't know when, it could be 2030, 2035, it's been talked about for a long time, I don't know when. Will we need more buses when the LRT is done to supplement the LRT?
So through the chair, I'll start, and if I don't finish the question, I'll send it over to Nick. My understanding is that there may be a requirement for additional buses to be available should the LRT run into issues and is stopped from operating. We're not sure who's responsible or how many we're going to require. But that will be coming as LRT planning progresses.
Manager Nick, please.
Okay.
Just to quickly add to that, we wouldn't expect it to be net new buses. We are taking a number of standards off the road, the 40-footers, through the life of this plan. And when the LRT is ready to open, when we're in that detouring situation, we'd still have some 40-footers in our stock too.
Okay. The next question was, so we're going to hire 450, obviously. We're going to have 79 new buses. We need drivers. We need somebody fixing them. We need a lot of FTEs. So the same question I'm asking, when the LRT is completed, and again, I say, I don't know when, maybe, I don't know where that page was, but anyways, will we need more FTEs?
Director Purser, please. Oh, you're not, Mike's, yeah, there you go.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. HSR should not require additional FTE when the LRT comes online.
Oh, okay. And can you, out of the 79, are any of them electric?
Through the chair, the buses that we are currently procuring are compressed natural gas propelled.
So all natural gas, which is good. And my last question, can you explain, because I heard, I think it was Eric Tuck, the difference between rapid route speed and local transit connectivity. I don't know how many years ago, I remember we had a designated bus lane, and that worked great. And then a few months later, I wasn't in council then, they painted it over, and it didn't work. Would this rapid route have special bus lanes?
Director first.
So through the chair, at this point, we have not put it in our plan to have dedicated transit lanes. So it is rapid based on route space, stop spacing. 800 meters between stops will allow us to run faster along that route versus a local route that just runs in a neighborhood and picks people up for school, doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, visiting neighbors, et cetera.
Well, I kind of find it ironic, somebody that wants to go fast, but is stopped at a wrong place, has to backtrack or go forward 800 meters. Like, I don't really understand that. So I take a bus, and I want to go fast, but it's not stopping where I want it to stop. So therefore, I have to run back 800 meters or run forward 800 meters, wherever I am, or 500 meters. I'm not saying the full thing. So I really don't see the distinction between fast and connectivity. Can you just explain it a little bit more, what it really means?
Last question then. So Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, it is a bit of a trade-off between the services, and collectively they provide that access to opportunity that we're trying to do in transit. Practically what that means for somebody trying to use the bus is that you're right, if you want to get to a faster route, the BlastX routes, you have to walk a bit further to get to it directly. That said, we have the local routes as well as the on-demand routes to help bring you to that rapid route. Sometimes that trade-off might not really work. I am a very tall person, I walk fast. I'll probably walk to the stop faster. But for another person, they might want to take the on-demand or the local route a couple of stops to help them make that connection.
And
I guess
Councilor,
my time's up?
Yeah, just as a reminder, the local routes is 250 meters, so they're much shorter in distance as opposed to.
Oh, I understand that.
Got
Like
it.
It was, okay.
So do you
my
want to be on
time's
the
up?
second time?
Sure,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, can we put Councilor Pauls on for a second time? Up now is Councilor Jackson, followed by Councilor Beatty. Councilor Jackson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Huang. Good morning, and to my colleagues and Acting Director Purser, sincere apologies for missing most of the presentation. I had a medical appointment that was scheduled months in advance of this meeting, so my apologies. And just a series of questions, having read the report. Let me just make a statement about area rating for transit. Since Councillor Kretsch mentioned it, I truly expected this term of council with newer members of council and very pro-transit that the area rating of transit in the suburban communities may have been brought up and hopefully it been eliminated by now, but let's see what the next 13 months might bring. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to the Acting Director, if I support the report and the recommendations here before me today, Acting Director Purser, is there any impact to the 2026 budget? And the reason why I'm asking that is that in spite of this good transit day today and hearing about HSR next, and very, very proud that you're in the Acting Director's position because I know you have tremendous continuity within HSR, Acting Director, and I say that very sincerely, versus others that have come and gone. So is there any impact to the 2026? Because I just don't want to get ahead of all competing interests. Through you, Deputy Mayor, please.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for your question. And through the presentation, if you accept HSR next for implementation year 1, 2026, there is, versus what was presented in the Outlook on September 11th, there is a approximately $300,000 savings, reduction in cost.
Okay, thank you, Acting Director. However, is there still a potential pressure on the 26 budget with any potential increase if I support what's here today? I want to support moving forward in what seems like a new dynamic HSR next plan that you and your team have presented. My conundrum is going to be, if I support this today, then months from now, well, Councillor, you already approved our increase on the budget in 26 ahead of the others, Deputy Mayor Huang. Through you, please. If Acting Director, you can give me a more specific answer, please.
JM Kennedy, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
Acting GM
Yeah,
Kennedy.
I'll jump in, and I may invite GM Zagarek to join into this as well, since it's primarily about the finances and the way this all works together. So the 10-year strategy was set out almost 10 years ago, and had a plan for 2026. With this, if this is approved and overrides the plan for next year, the immediate impact is a reduction to the levy ask relative to what you heard on Thursday, on September 11th, for transit specifically. GM Zagarek, do you want to add to that with more detail about?
Through the chair, Mike Zagarek, General Manager of Finance Corporate Services. What was presented through the 2026 tax outlook was the annualization of year 9 of the transit strategy. So 8 months as it relates to what council approved through the 2025 tax budget, as well as what was presented last week was the assumption of the first 4 months of year 10 of the transit strategy. What Acting Director Purser has identified is if what is ultimately adopted is the HSR next, the year 10 of the transit strategy would be swapped out with HSR next, which would represent a savings in 2026 of approximately $300,000. A few caveats, though. It would still be dependent on council's approval of operating impacts of capital as it relates to year 9 of the transit strategy, as well as HSR next. So we would need to understand how council would proceed with respect to the necessary FTEs. And while Acting Director Purser identified each and every year, it would come before committee and council in terms of the balance of the multi-year strategy. I will note that in table 2 of the report, it does identify levy pressures in 2027 and 28 of 1.55, so 0.5% and 1%, respectively. In those 2 years, that was not reflected in the outlook. So while the outlook presented a levy increase of 6.7% in 2027, if this were to be adopted, HSR next, that would change to approximately 7.25%, and in 2028, the 4.8 would increase to 5.8%. Thank you.
Thanks, Acting Director Kennedy and Director and GM Zagarek. GM Zagarek, can I just please simplify this for this layman? Is this budget, and I'm grateful for the $300,000 reduction, given the difficulties we're heading into to 26. Thank you, Acting Director Purser. Thank you. Just simply, please, would it have been 1% hypothetically, and with the $300,000 reduction, Councillor, now it's 0.7 going into 26 hypothetically? Can you give me a simplistic answer, please, through you, Deputy Mayor?
I think I'm going to ask GM Zagarek.
Yeah.
And he pulled out his phone, so I think he's doing some calculations.
Through the chair, the impact is 0.02 in terms of the reduction to the levy. So $300,000 would be about a 0.02% reduction.
Which then makes it a what potential impact on 26, please, GM Zagarek?
It would be somewhere in the 8.68.
8.68%.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
8.88 versus 8.9.
8.88%. Thank you, GM, for this simple-minded counselor. Thank you. It's 8.88% if I approve the report as it's presented here today, a pressure going into 26. What's my time like, Deputy Mayor? Because I have a few more questions. Second time?
Second time.
Second time, please. Thank you.
Okay. Up now is Councillor Beattie, followed by Councillor Kassar. Councillor Beattie, please.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, first, thanks to staff for the considerable work put into this plan. First, I just want to highlight quickly part of the community that I represent just had fixed route transit implemented over the past 2 years, and it's been very well received. And I think that there's components of this that allow us to build off of that. Specifically with the replacement of Transcab, which, if members recall, in the past may have served our community well, but really hasn't for some time now. And so the implementation of the MyRide program is exciting and very much anticipated by the community. However, I do hear some concerns from some areas where MyRide is anticipated to go. And it pertains to some, let's call it underbuilt infrastructure, and how the addition of a bus, albeit a 30-footer, not necessarily an Arctic bus or an accordion bus, but a bus nonetheless, a big vehicle, being put onto a street that has no sidewalk for pedestrians, potentially no multimodal transportation plan at all. And actually, we heard a delegate about this very issue last week. As we're planning for the implementation of the MyRide program, are there opportunities to address some of these other design deficiencies in tandem with transportation, other public works entities, in a holistic manner to improve safety for all road users instead of inadvertently making things worse by the introduction of these large vehicles? That's my first question.
Nope, GM Kennedy, please.
Thank you. So I don't have the specifics of each of the routes and how that may impact the road network, but I can advise you that the coordination of the rollout would be something that the Public Works team would work on with the, with the engineering consultants that help with the planning and the, so the hub development and then the routes. So you raise an excellent point, Councillor Beattie, on that. It's not as simple as just assigning a route and putting a bus on that road. There is more that goes into it involving the infrastructure that needs to support that. So, so we are aware of that and would be making plans with that in light.
Okay, so thank you for that, GM Kennedy, very much appreciated. I'll offer a quick response that, number one, please engage my office, and if I may be of service in some ways, let me know. But number two, if we're planning for an implementation 2026 of a MyRide program, it's 2025, month 9, and these deficiencies still exist today. We had a delegation last week where there's a curb that actually forces pedestrians to walk on live lane traffic because the curb pushes them out into live lane traffic. And this would be anticipated to potentially be one of the routes that we would see these new heavy buses in these communities. So there's significant pinch points that we're aware of already. I think we have to move very rapidly if it's the intent to implement this in a safe fashion. That's just more of a comment. Back to my second question. Actually, I just have a quick question. Buses don't make 3-point turns or do anything that requires a bus to reverse. Is that correct? So all routes, even the MyRide routes, have to have a continuous forward motion. Is that part of the planning? Can I just get confirmation on that, Chair?
Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, that's correct. And just to loop these two together, part of us planning for the zones is identifying where the smaller buses will run. That lets us avoid some of the problem points. I will note, though, for fixed route service, where there are conflicts like that, as the GM noted, we'd be looking for opportunities to improve it.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Another concern that was raised, we've got a number of cul-de-sacs and such in some of these areas and some concern from the community over that. Final question, comment, kind of blended together, Chair, with your indulgence. It was highlighted by Acting Director Purser, an error in the presentation that pertains to the Winona Crossing planned hub being shown as an off-street hub instead of the on-street hub, which has always been on the books. There's a plot of land next to our soon-to-open Eastside Mario's, bada boom, bada bing, that has been planned for an off-street hub for some time. And when I saw the on-street hub, it almost gave me heart failure, but I'm happy that it's been acknowledged as an error. In the report, it speaks to this hub as being part of a potential inclusion for Niagara Regional Transit coming into that hub. Members will recall I made a motion unanimously supported for engaging with NRT for a future connection. Is there any update as it relates to this document? And if it's approved today, does this help or bolster prospects for negotiations with Niagara Region? Are there ongoing conversations that went into the formation of this document with Niagara Region? Any update as it pertains to that very important interregional connection with our neighbors to the east?
Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, yes. They have also just completed their long-range plan that includes service to Niagara, or sorry, to Winona Crossing. We have planned for that in the hub development. We have bays allocated for Niagara. What we have not sorted out at this point is the exact details of how that will work, but we've protected for their ability to service the site. We're in conversation with their planners. It is working out the agreements to use the space that are next steps.
Thank you for that, Nick. And thank you, Chair, for that. Very, very excited to hear that, because that interregional connection not only links us with our neighbors to the east, but into the very important interregional connections that are afforded by GO Transit, which is just 8 kilometers to the east of us at Casablanca. So having that connection into our future plan is very, very vital. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Up now is Councillor Cassar, followed by Taddison, Clark, A. Wilson, McMeekin, and then on to second-time speakers. Councillor Cassar, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll have a few questions, and I'll probably go on a second time for comments. I'm sure I'll run out of time. First question, well, first of all, I'll say I'm very happy to see this come to this committee. I've been looking forward to it since the vision was shared with us in 2023. I'll speak more about that later. So just to follow up on the question that was asked about rapid transit infrastructure, I understand the answer around our dedicated lanes. Part of this, the answer is no. And so am I to take from that that even transit priority signaling or anything else would need to be part of any future plans and budget discussions? Is that correct through you?
Through the chair, I'll start and then pass it over to Nick. At this point, we haven't costed any additional ancillary items for the rapid routes, such as priority signaling, queue jump lanes, or bus lanes only. As we move into this plan, and again, it's going to depend on what do our stats show us about the usage and the demand required on these routes. We will come back to council with additional ask.
Just add very quickly to that from the earlier comments. The exception is the A line. There is funding available for signal priority improvements. We are just waiting for that system to come back online for the signal priority. It was taken out through the cyber incident.
Thank you for the clarification. And yeah, if Public Works Committee members will recall, just last cycle, there was a recommendation for Garner Road that I asked to be deferred, and this is just one of the things that I would like to have as part of the conversation. Second question relates to slide 7. This was showing about service hour increase over the time frame as well as trips increase. So what it said, Deputy Mayor, was service hour increase of 55%, which is exciting, and trip increase of plus 37%. Which was roughly 10 million, I think. So I need some help making sure I'm understanding this correctly, because on the surface, it would seem to me that that's a decrease in asset utilization. You have more service hours and less people, I guess, per hour. So just some elaboration on that to make sure I understand it. Is the riders per hour of service dropping? So through to the appropriate person who can help me understand that.
Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, you're right. There is a degree of efficiency lost while we add service out. It takes time, as the director noted earlier, for people to get on board, try it, stick with it. Anecdotally, from our Waterdown service, we've seen that in our September increase last year. We added a lot of service on weekends and late night periods. Efficiency overall dropped, but we saw about a 35% increase in ridership overall. So it does take some of that inefficient servicing on weekends, on late evenings, to get the return on the peak periods too.
Okay, I understand that, and also heard that it would be reevaluated on an annual basis, and that this is a projection and things can change over time. Next question to what Councillor Paul was asking about future or currently planned purchases for more buses. I want to ask more so longer term about transit fleet and decarbonization. So the answer given back to Councillor Pauls was current purchases are compressed natural gas, but if the appropriate staff member could speak to what the decarbonization plans are and how that intermingles with this plan over the 7 years and beyond.
Director Purser, please.
Through the chair, with the new Liberal government, there's a cooling and interest in funding electric or hydrogen buses at this time because of cost. It's a very pricey solution. However, we already run most of our vehicles as CNG. We are going to be continuing to look at how to run more, again, with renewable natural gas. And that is carbon negative overall in the greenhouse gases.
Yeah, last question then, like I said, go on a second time, is around communication. So Appendix C is a communication plan, and I understand there the outreach and communication that will be happening to current users and potential users. I guess, I don't know if this is actually a question or it's just rhetorical at this point, but I would have a distinction between communication and marketing. And I think in this case, we really want marketing. It's not just about sharing, hey, here's what's available, but it's enticing people, providing incentives, whether they're financial or otherwise. So I would put that out there. Are we confident that this is actually marketing in the way to really drive new service? I mean, I understand 10 million are projected in additional rides, but just would ask for some staff comment on the distinction between communication and marketing.
Through the chair, I'll start and then I'll pass it over to Ali Sporn. The tactics are a combination of some marketing, especially to attract new riders. We need to get out there with materials to entice them to try transit, and as well as teach them how to use transit. And communications, the big communication pieces are supporting people who travel by route. Like they walk out their door, they know exactly where the bus stop is, what time to get there, and how to move. So it will be communicating with those customers to ensure that they're able to navigate the new system. And I'll have Ali add to that.
Good morning, Ali Sabrin. Oh, it's not
Turn it
on.
on.
Excuse me, through the chair. Good morning, Ali Sabrin, Manager of Customer Experience and Innovation. You are correct. When we say communications, it is also marketing, engagement, outreach, and our wayfinding as well. So we just sort of had to pick a word to encompass it all, and you've picked up on that. It will include traditional marketing working through our corporate communications team. So we'll be looking at advertising and other sort of traditional marketing, in addition to a lot of outreach. We know a lot of the individuals that we have surveyed include non-riders, and we know there is great interest. And so far, we talk to a lot of the non-riders through our outreach at festivals and events. It's 20,000 people so far this year. That number continues to grow, and it is one of our main ways to reach our non-riders right now. Thank you.
Let's put Councillor Kassar on for a second time then. Thank you. On now is Councillor Taddison, followed by Clark. Councillor Taddison, please.
Hi, thanks for the presentation today. I have some specific concerns about some of the services in my ward. Apologies to the rest of council as I delve into the specifics. Just some questions about my ride. The year that it's going to replace Transcab in Glanbrook, is that 2027?
Through the chair, at this point, if it's part of year one of HSR Next, so we'd be looking at the fall of 2026.
Oh, okay, that's good news then. And my next question is, if there's an area that is serviced currently by Transcab in Glanbrook, does that mean that my ride will replace that Transcab service in that area?
Through the chair, yes. My ride will replace all areas in Glanbrook and Lower Stony Creek that currently is serviced by Transcap.
Okay, and then to delve into a specific area, does that mean that the 20 Road West community, which currently has service by Transcab, will get service by On Demand?
Through the chair, yes, that's what that means.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you for that. Okay, so in going over these reports, I see that bus service to one urban area is currently not being considered or improved, and that's for Bimbrook. So we know there are their opinions, strong opinions on both sides. Whether buses should come to Bimbrook, it has supporters, it has detractors. Whether one supports transit coming to Bimbrook or not is not as important to me as what the data says about it being a viable and needed service, because we should be making data-based decisions. I just heard you say that you are making decisions that are dependent on stats. So for public consumption, what does your data say about buses coming to Bimbrook, and what's the big plan going forward?
One of the challenges with planning out to Binbrook is there is no existing data for ridership out there. One of the plans for Binbrook, we do have a service plan to the side for My Ride style service within the community, as well as a fixed route towards Heritage Green to connect it. Both of those are additional costs over what is in HSR Next. Starting with My Ride, the way that our service design is structured, if we start with My Ride, that pulls in usage data, and we're able to upgrade it over time to local, collector, and even one day rapid.
Okay, thanks. What's the plan then going forward about collecting data?
Big one for us is APC, our automated passenger counters. Those were taken out in the cyber incident, and we're eagerly awaiting their restoration. We also have an upgrade on our vehicle location data that lets us understand whether buses are running early or late. That is in the process of being upgraded as well.
Any plans for doing a survey in Binbrook to see the capacity, if it's viable or not?
Through the chair, we would be happy to work with the councillor's office to create a survey and find out what the level of interest is for Binbrook at this time. During the creation of HSR Next and the conceptual network, we worked within our current urban transit area, of which Binbrook is not included, although it is considered an urban area as part of the city of Hamilton. So there need to be some changes made there as well. And it, again, not costed as part of HSR Next. It would carry new and additional costs, but happy to work on a survey.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'll reach out as necessary. One last question. I keep hearing about Hamilton and our use of vicinity buses, but from my understanding, vicinity is insolvent, it's in receivership, and it's not currently operating. So does that affect our ability to service those buses and the service overall to the community?
We have a new.
I will, through the chair, I will start, and then I will ask our manager of fleet to finish. At this time, we are not purchasing any new vicinity buses. We are investigating for this plan other types of a small bus in order to satisfy the on-demand service that we want to provide. I'm pretty sure that we can still get parts for the vicinities we currently have, but I'll have Jeff Poljanski confirm that.
Through the chair, my name is Jeff Poljanski. I'm the manager of fleet maintenance for transit. I'm going to speak to both of those parts there. So yes, you're correct about the vicinity buses. However, when they went into insolvency, they have been separated into parts distribution, so we can still acquire parts from the manufacturer. It just takes a little bit of a longer lead time. And then for the other piece, because we're natural gas, it is a limited market on who provides smaller vehicles and the natural gas fuel. But we do have alternatives out there in the market that we're exploring from other vendors that are still in practice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. No more questions.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor Clark, followed by Councillor Alex Wilson. Councillor Clark, please.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor. Just a few questions.
Why 7 years and not 10, like the last plan?
Through the chair, as I mentioned, as we started to phase and look at all the changes that needed to be made, I'm sorry. We realized that we had a rule that we didn't want to change routes more than once to prevent confusion for customers. And so the groupings are made in such a way that they're intertwined. So when we start pulling one of the routes, it has other impacts to other routes, which is why we have a couple of large years and why it's over a 7-year period.
So I'm not sure I understand as to why it's not 10 years, why it wouldn't be phased in over 10 years rather than pushing it to 7.
Through the chair. So some of the route changes will, if we start separating and making it longer, the implementation longer, we will change routes more than once.
Thank you. Still a little bit confused about the budget for 2026. I heard lower service saves 300,000. But we're adding 35 new FTEs. So how do we do all that and not increase the budget?
Through the chair, 10-year local transit strategy includes 43 new staff as part of the plan, and this one's 37.
I'm sorry, but it didn't answer the question. So you're saying that there's a reduction in service, save 300,000. GM Zagaric said it would be 0.02% of the levy, but you're adding 35 new FTEs. The FTEs generally around $100,000. How is it that we're not seeing an increase in 2026?
Director or General Manager, please. Zagaric.
Through the chair, the outlook that was presented to committee last week reflected transit division budget increasing to approximately $123.6 million in 2026. And I think this is clarity Councillor Jackson is looking for as well in terms of the impact of the transit budget, not the global budget. And that represented an increase of about 11.5%. If the budget were to be adjusted to reflect a reduction of this, if HSR Next were to be adopted, the 2026 increase would be approximately 12.4 million, which would represent an increase in the transit levy of about 11.2%.
Okay, so it's going up in 2026.
Through the chair, that's correct.
It is a little bit confusing, and I know it's challenging trying to put all these things together, but in one of the reports that we got, it shows 0.11% increase in the levy. And now we're hearing a different figure. It just gets very difficult to understand exactly what the heck's going on. On a parochial side, 43, the Stone Church, you're taking out Green Mountain Road, Upper Centennial, and Mud and First Road West. Why? We just added it.
Manager Nick, please.
Part of the changes out in your ward and the surrounding area are as we're going to the new route types. So service will be present, but on different types of routes, as well as the on-demand service.
Which routes?
If you give me a second, I can get you exact numbers. Some of the big ones
Appreciate that.
are the 40E line, which is the rapid route between Confederation Go and Heritage Green Terminal. There will also be an express route on Rymel, 30S line, that is coming over into the ward. The local and collectors, if you give me a second, I can get you the details.
The challenge is, while you're getting the details, is we added those numbers so that there was actually bus access to the Heritage Green Sports Park. and that there was bus access to all the folks who moved into the area down in Empire Estates and over. It's a large population now down there, and there was no buses touching them. So we added it, and now we're taking it away. Not sure how I will explain that to the residents.
I might have to follow up with you on specific areas that we're losing it.
Thank you. The other thing that I'm struggling to understand is the Elfrida Gateway. In your mapping, it shows it's on Regional Road 20, the corner of Centennial Parkway. So Rymel on one side, 20 on the other. That's supposed to be a fire and ambulance station. So how are we putting in a hub there?
Through the chair, transit is one of several departments with interests on the site. We're engaged with our real estate office, with all the other parties as well, on how to use that site collectively. There's been a few other hubs that we've identified through this process that were also identified in the affordable housing initiatives. We're having to kind of react. What will be maintained is access for transit buses, whether that is an off-street hub or shifting towards an on-street hub.
Last question, Councillor?
So you're saying it's a place marker?
Through the chair, that hub would still exist as a hub. What it may not have, as was previously contemplated, is full commuter parking. It may shift from a standalone building to servicing the curb or parking lots so that fire and other parties can get what they need at the site as well.
Can I put you on for a second time, Councillor?
Absolutely.
Okay,
3 questions
all right.
in. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Can we put Councillor Clark on? Up now is Councillor Alex Wilson, followed by Councillor McMeekin. Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I think just the one question from me. I'm trying to understand service level increases outside of route changes. So for example, in Appendix B, we set service level frequency for local routes to 20 minutes. Does that frequency change? I know the process is annually, it comes out every year in November, we're going to do the service level plan, but is the intention to increase frequency on existing routes, or does the increase in frequency only come when the change happens? So for example, does Dundas move from 30-minute to 20-minute service in 2030 when the new Local 51 launches in this plan, or is there an opportunity to fund existing routes at a higher service level until that change happens? So when does the service level change?
Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, within the plan, it's budgeted to take place in the planned year. As the directors talked about, we're trying to do changes one at a time instead of coming back to an area several times. So the planned service increase would come as the route is changing.
Thank you. I think through you, Chair, just for committee, I appreciate the goal of minimizing disruption. I don't think, though, increasing service levels on an existing bus is disruption. It's the route's not changing. And so I think if there's opportunities to pull forward some of this, our local routes right now, if we're saying they should be 20 minutes, they should be 20 minutes. And I don't think it should wait 5 years or 7 years for there to be that equity citywide in terms of how long you should be waiting for the bus and what does that maximum wait period look like. Increasing some route frequency involves freeing up a bus in this planning. And so it is a bit of a change, but I think something that as we're continuing this, something I'll be certainly pursuing in the annual service level conversations is how can we bring someone forward some of that investment, appreciating though, the plan in front of us is about minimizing disruption. I think it's just personally don't see it as a disruption to have the bus come a little bit more frequent on the route that you're there today. And so if we can find a way to budget that, I think that's certainly an investment in frequency that folks are looking for. And as the community of Dundas is one of the later served communities on the plan, bridging that wait would have a really huge impact, and also having people buy in to paying for this, seeing those service level increases sooner than 5 years from now, I think helps justify the why our tax is going up to pay for it sooner than 5 years from now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Up now is Councillor McMeekin, please.
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I just want to say that I intend to support the report. I think it's a good start, a good marker. I appreciate the recent demand service changes in the community. I think they've been generally well received. They're are still some concerns about the few students who want to connect to MAC. So I look forward down the road to doing some offline conversation with acting manager Purser and others. I want to say for the record that I'm not a big fan of area rating. That may come as a surprise to some. But I am a big fan of service equity. And I think it's the yin and the yang of the transit discussion that we're having. I'm not at this point particularly interested in pushing any particular change. We'll do some offline stuff. But I am worried down the road, the fact that there's been no hub identified in the Waterdown community is of some concern. I know that the $1 billion plus provincial work on number 5 and number 6 is going to alter the form, structure, and way our community, in particularly Waterdown, develops. There's between 5,000 and 7,000 new homes slated between, and I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion on that in my area, between now and 2030, very, very recent. So I think that's going to have an impact. My understanding, I don't know even where I got it from, but the thinking was that with the new rec center that's scheduled to go adjacent to the Harry Howell Arena, or alternatively, what remains of the northeast corner of number 5 and number 6 would potentially become a hub for the community and for the first time, perhaps direct service into Hamilton, which doesn't seem to be a priority at the moment, but I suspect will be. So my question would be around looking 5-6 years down the road, giving thanks and appreciation for the changes that have been made, but questioning the thinking around, any thinking to date around potential hub that is being identified and how that will impact ultimately on the HSR service in the community I'm privileged to represent.
Okay. Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, the April 2023 plan did have a hub at the Highway 5 and 6 interchange contemplated. The two routes, the fixed routes serving Waterdown and then the on-demand, and this life cycle, which I know you said 5 to 6 years, a little bit out at 7 years, aren't going to need a hub in this time frame. Within the next one, I think you'll see in our next growth plan some focus on rural areas as one option, and that might require a hub in Waterdown that could proceed at either the Highway 5 and 6 interchange, which I believe is still planning for a GO stop, for GO bus. There's also the Dundas BRT work being advanced by the province and Metrolinx that would travel down Dundas corridor. That requires all of us to work together, Peel Region as well, Halton Region. There might be a hub identified through that.
Deputy Mayor, I appreciate that answer. And the other alternative, there's 8.5 acres at Harry Howell. That might be another natural spot, because one of the concerns about the Harry Howell Arena being there is how kids are going to cross the highway. And if busing is a way in and out to where the hub goes, could be on either side of the highway, but that would be an option. I agree that a hub is not necessary for the immediate future, but it certainly is going to be 5-6 years down the road. Thanks for your work on this.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Any other first-time speakers? Mayor Horvath, please.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Wang. I want to say that this has been a really important conversation from my perspective, because you all have the kind of granular understanding of how the HSR provides service to your particular wards, your communities, as well as your own kind of perspectives on the service writ large and how to make it better. I want to say thank you to the staff. I think they've brought forward something that's that really does look at where we need to go to continue to grow our service, and also thoughtfully, I think, incorporated some of the pieces that we've talked about around this table in terms of equitable access, in terms of making sure that employment lands are serviced. I hear that every time I'm out and about with the employer community. A focus on making sure that there's an equity lens in terms of lower income folks who are looking to get to and from jobs, because we also know that minimum wage doesn't afford people the opportunity to own a vehicle and pay for the costs of upkeep and gasoline, et cetera, et cetera. I want to actually get clarification around the dollar piece, because it came up a couple of times in the budget and in layperson's terms. I just want to go back to this kind of what feels like people still don't have a grasp on, including myself perhaps, is the outlook that was provided had a certain amount in it for HSR that was an increase for transit. There was an increase in the outlook that was presented on the 11th. What this plan does is reduce by 300,000 the increase that was brought forward on the 11th. Is that an accurate description of what's going on with these numbers? That in fact, yes, it's a $300,000 savings, but really it's a $300,000 reduction in the increase that was brought forward on the 11th.
Yeah. Through the chair to the mayor, that's correct. The outlook captured a transit levy forecast representing an increase of approximately $12.7 million if HSR Next were to be adopted. That would reduce the increase to $12.4 million.
That's what I was getting from those conversations that were happening, so I appreciate the clarity on that. I would also want to say that I see this this as a kind of an aspirational report and plan, and I've always said one of my favorite sayings is you have to plan the work and then you work the plan. And so I just want to make sure that where the report talks about flicking of switches in various places throughout this plan implementation, should it be approved, some of those switches you talked about in the report, staff did, about accelerating or slowing down. And I guess my question would be, does it also include tweaking, just based on some of the things that the councillors have raised in terms of the impacts on their communities? Is a tweaking possible, let's say, in year 4, if there's something that might be apparent that would be beneficial in terms of the goal of this, which is to provide greater coverage of service in terms of our entire community, and perhaps even touching on some of the comments raised by Councillor McMeekin around the yin and the yang of how we pay for the services writ large.
So through the chair, hearing what how council has approached this, given the magnitude of work that we're doing in each of the buckets, we would have to look at what capacity is available. Do we have, are we prepared to buy more buses and hire more operators to move that up sooner? Again, because they've been packaged, we want to make sure we're not pulling a thread that unravels other service. But there's absolutely opportunities for us to look at various options.
Am I finished now? Was that? Okay. Okay, so then there are a couple of things, and one of them I'm going to maybe take offline, but I was a little concerned about the issue around the bus barn delay, or the new service delay, in terms of a lack of ventilation that was discovered kind of while we're in the process of building a facility. So I'm going to take that offline, but that worries me a great deal, particularly around the cost and who's responsible for that kind of an error. But the other piece was the piece around, and I think this is a conversation that comes up at the table, and that's the capital looks like it's all done with. I'm almost finished. The capital looks like it's kind of all accounted for. The operational funding comes mostly through FTEs. There's an unknown around accommodation of infrastructure on routes and roads that I think it was, I can't remember which councillor was talking about that, maybe it was Councillor Beattie. So we'll need to understand that as well, how it ricochets onto other budgets. That's one thing. The other thing is the FTEs and just around the acceleration and or slowing down, the tweaking, et cetera. In the report, it speaks to the bringing of these costs to council during budget sessions. And I would just ask that we start thinking or start providing council with information outside of the budget actual pressure, and let us know earlier in the process what you're forecasting in terms of, and I don't mean just this division, obviously, but what you're forecasting earlier on, so that we can have a more realistic outlook as opposed to one that's not realistic at all. So if we can, and I don't mean not at all, I don't mean it in that way, in a pejorative way, but is there a way that we can have information about how this plan, assuming it's going to be adopted, how it's unfolding to make adjustments prior to a budget session?
Through the chair, we will, through HSR Next, be implementing the annual service review process, which we have planned to start 18 months in advance of when we want to implement that service, which should give us plenty of time to be in front of council and present what we anticipate we're going to be changing very specifically on the routes in the areas and what our capital FTE and operating costs will be.
Thank you, Mayor. We are on to second-time speakers. First up is Councillor Pauls, followed by Councillor Jackson, Kassar, and Clark. Councillor Pauls, please.
Thank you. And I've been fixated on page 8 of 19, the operating costs of implementing. And, you know, I heard about the 300,000 savings, and we get it talked about. Really, it's a saving on what we were going to spend. It reminds me when I go out and buy a dress, there's a sale on that dress, and I saved $100, but I still spend way too much for that dress. But I really want to tell you that I do support HSR big time, because I do believe that HSR is the lifeline of our city. So I do believe that. So I look at that and I'm very, very confused. I don't know why. I keep looking at it and going, because I'm looking at service hours, total trips, then I go fare revenue, then I do the total. The total spending is really $88,278,000 in the next 7 years. We are estimating 29 million in fare increase. So I'm trying to subtract that, and you get to that levy. Really, we're spending 59,224,000, and the levy impact total in 7 years is 4.56. So I'm trying to go up and down, trying to figure the lines here. And one thing struck me is between 2028 and 2030. 2028, we're going to have $13 million, and it's because we're going to have trips of 1,916. Then we're going to hire 93 FTEs. Then I go to 2029, 72 FTEs, and the trips are exactly the same. But I'm taken back at 2030, where it says the trips are going to be decreased at 1,599. We're going to hire people at 48, and the levy is going to be 9. What happened between 2028, 2029, 2030 that we're going to decrease the trips? I thought we were going to make sure they stay level and we want people to ride, and then it jumps back up to 1.830, not 1,830 in 2031. What happened to 2030? What happened that we're going to say no more trips, we're going to decrease it, we're still spending almost $10 million, $9,096,000. What happened there?
Thank you. So speaking about page 8 of the presentation, 8 of 19. So Director Purser, please.
Through the chair, these numbers, the ridership numbers, represent the increases for that particular year only. So they become cumulative over time. So in 2030, we have 65,000 service hours, which is half of the service hours that we're adding in 2039. So ridership is forecasted based on population growth and service being added. That's why it looks like there's a bit of a decrease for that year. Again, it's cumulative, and we don't lose it.
Well, you don't lose it, but how come it shows, almost 400,000 less trips? 400 less trips.
So through the chair, we've added less service.
So you're going to add, why are we adding less service in that year? What's special about 2030? I just want to know. Do you see a forecast, 2030, something's going to happen, and we're going to say, we don't need the buses anymore? This operating cost implementation here, honestly, I don't know why. It's jumping all over. And what we heard at the beginning is we're going to save 300,000, and I thought, oh, that's good. Then you look, and really, we're not saving 300,000. Listen, I want this to pass. I'm not saying I'm not going to pass it. I just want to have clarity. I'm sitting here looking at it. If I have question, and Councillor Jackson mentioned a few things, and Councillor Clark, if I have question and I look at it, and I look at it for hours, and we're talking about, what about the residents? Like, what are we saying to amend? Oh, yeah, we saved 300,000 on the bus, on our and we really did. Like, this chart to me, it's too complicated in a way. And what's happening in 2030? That's all I want to know.
Director Purser, please.
Through the chair, each ridership number reported is net new ridership for that year, specifically for that year. For the term, for the entire program, we are going to add, by the end of the program, 11.5 million trips every single year. So each year just speaks to net new rides on our system.
Okay, so in 2031, we're going to go back to 1,130.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I don't know why, I still don't understand them. Maybe I could talk offline, and maybe I could sit down with you and figure it out, because I can't. One question I want to say.
Last question now? Last question?
Next question, that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And like I said, I support this. I think it's important, but I just want to know the figures.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm just, the operating revenue, fare revenue, it's 29,000 for the 7 years, like total, right? What about if we see more people that can't afford it? The way our country's going, the way the world's going, people can't afford anything, and we say one day it's going to be free. So what are you anticipating? You spread it out to 7 years. What happens if people can't afford it?
Director Purser, please.
Through the chair, that would be a council decision, how the fare policy is determined. And should council decide to reduce fares, then the net cost to the levy will increase.
Yes, I think it was last term or this term, I don't know, they're all blending in right now. We say, should be free, and there are countries that give free ridership, and, I don't know anybody in Canada, but, so it could be a concern too. So really, the cost of operating is 88,278,000. If we didn't have no fare revenue. But we hope that, nobody knows what the future looks like. So, but like I said, I do support HSR. It's important for our city. So Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pauls. We do have a first-time speaker, Councillor Spatafora, please.
I apologize, Chair, for jumping in. Just a couple questions. I'm just looking for confirmation. So the financial impact for year one will be about 1% on the tax levy. I heard 12.6, 13 million being 1%. If I can just confirmation on that. To GM Zagarek, then 2 questions for Acting Director Purser, and I'm done.
Through the chair, the approximately 12.7 or 12.4 million would be just short of 1%.
Thank you. Questions in regards to the plan. Was this plan designed to account for growth before the growth? Like I'm just trying to understand the growth concept. Are we talking about growth in population? We know for the last little while and into the future, growth in regards to housing is non-existent. Condos downtown are not being sold. Rentals downtown are not being moved into. I was just down there with a few of the people that put them up, and they have a lot of vacant things. We have no urban boundary expansion. I don't know if work was done with the HSR group talking to planning about what's in the pipeline for construction within our employment growth lands, what kind of subdivisions are coming online. What I've heard from people that represent those industries, that work is non-existent. And if anything, it is going to get worse next year. And there is no shining star in the future that they know, oh, don't worry, come 2028, we got 15,000 homes being built in that year, so the growth will be there. So I'm just trying to understand, we're talking about growth, we want to build, are we building out a network before we even know the growth is there? Or are we just trying to wrap my head around all the growth, please?
Through the chair, the current plan is based on where the current growth has happened. So in all of the outlying areas of Hamilton, we have seen substantial growth in the past few years. And so this addresses that, but also looks at where the future growth is planned, which is, again, in the same areas. I'll pass it over to Nick to provide more detail.
So just specifically for the longer term growth, the map that was in the deck, that is based on the long-term forecast out to 2051. Folks around the table may be familiar, there's been 2 updates in the last year to those growth projections from the province that we must respond to. We are working with the planning department to understand how that will distribute down to local areas. That map is based on the last update. We're not expecting that to really change how it moves around the city, just the overall scale. The last kind of piece on the growth side, we are involved with planning through the different applications we get for urban boundary expansions. We provide feedback and comments to them. This plan is fully within the urban transit area and the urban boundary. As that growth may or may not happen, it is not budgeted for in HSR next.
Okay, so last question, just to confirm, none of the growth that is in this 7-year strategy has anything to do with anything outside the urban boundary expansion. Is that what I just heard?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Up now, Councillor Jackson, followed by Kassar, and then Clark. Councillor Jackson, please.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Huang. I'll speak a little more quickly to try to meet your rapid timelines. Okay, let's get this cleared once and for all, because Councillor Clark, myself, Pauls, and Spatafora have done our very, very best. And GM Zagarek, thank you for the 11.5 that was on September 11th that now is 11.2. Thank you, Acting Director Purser, for the $300,000 reduction. So we're at 11.2, the HSR. But looking at slide 8, once and for all, one last time, estimated levy global impact 0.11%. Is that correct, GM Zagarek? Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, that would be amended. If this were to be adopted, staff would amend that table. So the first year, 2026, would be amended from a 0.11 to show a small reduction.
As in 0.08, 0.09, GM Zagarek? I want to ask this for the last time. I don't want to ask this again, please.
Through the chair, maybe if the councillor can come back to me in 30 seconds.
How about if I ask this? It will be lower than the 0.11 listed, correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. That's good. Okay. Now, since other members of council got very parochial with, hey, what's going on in my ward with enhancement of roads? So I've got to ask Deputy Mayor. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to now. Deputy Mayor, through you to Manager Chaloux. Manager Chaloux, how are we doing with this plan? If I support HSR next, how's the Mohawk 41? The Upper Kettleware 21, the Upper Gage 22, the Upper Ottawa 23, the Stone Church 43, the Rymel 44. Give me a nice cursory and say, Councillor Jackson, we're retaining what you want on the East Mountain. I'm delighted to hear this. Through you, Deputy Mayor, please.
Through the chair, most of the routes. Sorry. Most of the routes are changing in your ward. Just to pick up on a few of the ones that you mentioned there, 41 Mohawk and 42 Mohawk East will be replaced by 34 Mohawk, which is a local service, and the 50 T line, which is one of the original blast routes. There are plans for the north-south routes, 21 and 22, I think you mentioned. Both of those will see more minor adjustments through your ward. They are going up into the business park at Red Hill. But I think the main change in your ward that is different from the current map will be on, blanking on the street name, but between Concession and Fennel.
So overall, Manager Chaloux, thank you for that. Overall, then, can I share with my community, if approved, moving forward with HSR next? Will overall, the routes, the timing, increased service level, increased running times, generally speaking, overall, councillor, will be in the ballpark of what you have? No, councillor, a serious reduction? Can you give me some general comment on that through you, Deputy Mayor Huang? I'm not trying to pigeonhole you, but I know what my community will just look for a simplistic message in this regard.
For your ward specifically, it will be an increase in service. The most noticeable will be the north-south routes running more frequently at all times of day.
Wow, very Manager Chaloux, well done. Okay, now through you to Acting Director Purser. Why will investment work to increase ridership this time? Acting Director, I've been around a long time. I've heard plans come and go, revision, all the ones over the years. Councillor, we're going to increase ridership. It seems we have a basic stagnant, somewhat up amount, pandemic, unfortunately. Now we're back up a bit. And I see on your slide 14, attracting new customers, targeting communications to unique audiences. I've argued for years, get the suits like me on the HSR. I love my vehicles, but get suits like me on public transit. What do you mean by attracting new customers, and why will this plan work if I'm going to support it? Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, again, barring any more pandemics, I think, we're in good footing for building ridership. We have built trust with our current customers, and we have, our brand is very strong in the community. With the addition of new service, the rapid routes across the city, as opposed to just two rapid routes today, will make it more attractive for suits like you to get on the bus. We will be able to move faster through the city with great connections to downtown. Again, with the introduction of on-demand, which goes into areas that have been underserviced. So Ancaster, Stony Creek, Dundas, where we're addressing first mile, last mile concerns. These will be net new riders. So we believe this will put us in a strong position to really grow our ridership.
Great answer, Acting Director. And last question for my beloved seniors. Are we, Deputy Mayor Huang, retaining the Golden Age Pass and the seniors bus pass as well? Through you to Acting Director or the Manager, please.
Through the chair, with this initial presentation of HSR Next and the implementation, we have maintained all the fare policies in place that Council has approved. Again, we do have a consultant-led user fee review currently happening that will be coming back to be reported I think at Finance and Manner, maybe Budget, in the fall of 2026.
But the Golden Age Pass, currently free, sustains itself, correct? It's retained.
Through the chair, yes.
Deputy Mayor, closing comment? I just knew you were going to say that. Okay. Nancy Purser has had longevity in management in HSR. And I just want to say in her acting director portfolio, I really appreciate what I think is a very prudent, visionary plan moving forward. She's homegrown this way. I'm not trying to make anything personal, but sometimes the people who present and have experience and wisdom and have been part of public transit because they're very much strong advocates. I want to give this an opportunity. I'll be supporting it. Overall, I'm encouraged by what I've heard. And again, the fact that it's less than a 0.11 on the global 8.9. We've got work to do on the global 8.9 over the next few months, but today I'm satisfied with what I've heard. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Huang.
Thank you. Up now is Councillor Cassar, followed by Clark. Councillor Cassar, please.
Yeah, sure. Just a comment for Councillor Jackson. The last 3 years, I'm a new customer of the HSR, and I think I have a suit jacket on too, so it's working already. You're encouraging me. Yeah, just try it. Yeah, just going back to what Councillor Pauls was talking about on that page 8, I think it might be helpful if there was a row on there that showed the total transit ridership, because each of those numbers is increased, right? So you would see each year the number is increasing by the numbers you're referencing, but I know you're going to take that offline, but I thought I'd just mention that. Hopefully it's helpful. So just some comments from me. Absolutely supportive of this. Going back to what Councillor Kretsch talked about here about some of the weaknesses of not including the broader benefits to the community, that's not in here. It's not costed because there is a latent need. We've heard from the Chamber of Commerce that we need better transit for people to get the jobs, to attract talent. So that's a positive impact. It brings more people here, more businesses, encourages more development. I've had people asking me for better bus services in Ward 12 in Ancaster, where there's going to be a mile ride on demand, which I think is very important and will be helpful. And I think we all hear about this. I hear about it all the time is traffic, traffic, traffic. What are you doing about traffic? Well, this is one of the things we're doing about traffic, because what things come down to is space. And there's a space inequity when we're talking about movement in cities, because space really is the ultimate currency. And how we move around, how we build, where we live, where we work. And we spend a lot of time talking about what things cost, which is important, of course, not taking away from that. But we don't talk about enough, I don't think, about what they cost in space, whether that be a certain number of automobiles that take up a lot of the road and cause congestion versus the much more efficient way, multiple times more efficient, of buses. And it doesn't mean everyone needs to move by public transit, but there's a tipping point where you get enough people to use it, it makes it better for everybody. And that is part of what this plan is, and it's one of the benefits that isn't costed in here, because you get more people on buses, present company included, there's more space for other users, and it's just a more pleasant experience for everyone. And then it's also about affordability. Councillor Pauls is asking about what if people can't afford transit. One of the big challenges is people who can't afford a vehicle. I know I've spoken about that before. I'm at the stage of life where I have adult children now, still living at home because I can't afford housing. But the prospect of costing out adding a new vehicle and the insurance and the repairs, it's a lot cheaper to get a bus pass. So in the scenario that's presented in the vision here, getting around will be so much easier, and to give an adult child, adult, I don't know, they're both, a bus pass, or get them to pay for it, really, is much more cost-effective and affordable than having to purchase a vehicle. Not taking away the opportunity. If somebody needs a vehicle, people need vehicles. It's just, you need to have options. And speaking about space, I've experienced transit in several cities over the last few years, and have really seen where really good transit makes it a much better experience, a lot less cars, more people to shop on businesses in a downtown, all those kinds of things. So my perspective has really changed, because I did not use the bus at all. I didn't even think about using the bus prior to coming into this role and working in the city versus commuting. One of the positive things I just want to highlight, an off-street hub in the Ancaster Fairgrounds. Really positive development for Ancaster, positive for the fairgrounds, and a little plug here, positive in the future for the Ancaster Fair, which is this weekend, by the way. Just letting everyone know I'll be there. So it's things like that that'll give people a lot more options. And then if I just close with an anecdote, I think I have a little bit of time left.
1 minute, 20 seconds.
I won't take a minute, 20 seconds. I was asking about marketing earlier, and my daughter just started co-op today. She's in grade 12, and it's a part-day co-op, so she needs to get from the co-op placement to school. And it's a bit far to walk. It would take probably 45 minutes, so public transit. We had the conversation. She was very nervous. I've never taken it before because it really hasn't been an option, to what I alluded to earlier. So we pulled out the transit app, which I know is not the HSR app now because of cybersecurity, but a similar app, very easy to show her how to use it. It's visual. It has the times and the route and where you need to get on, where you need to get off, when the expected timing is. So I think when you put that in front of people, especially younger people who are very, very apt to pick up technology and use apps all the time, they're in front of their phones too much. But it was a great way to break down that barrier. And by the end of it, she says, wow, that's really easy. And I'm not so concerned anymore. So when we're talking about marketing and communication, it's the experience and helping people. Sometimes it's holding a hand, literally or figuratively, but I think that's on all of us to do. And that's why I was asking about marketing, because making that personal connection, which I know staff will do over time, is really, really important. So in closing, very, very supportive of this. It's positive for the people of the city. It's positive for the city itself. And it makes it a more pleasant experience because people have options to get around. Thank you for the extra 5 seconds.
Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Currently, our last speaker is Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, do we have the current increase in ridership for 2025? Do we have those numbers?
I don't have the figures right in front of me, but we are slightly ahead of 2024 as of July by about 0.4%. I believe that when we forecast for the remainder of the year, we're estimating about a 1% increase over 2024.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So we have stopped the decline in terms of loss of ridership, correct?
Through the chair, I believe so.
That's good to hear. Just a couple of quick comments. I've heard the comment about the wraps on the buses. This is a fellow who does ride the bus quite frequently, especially in the wintertime. When I'm on those buses, I kind of feel like I'm a loaf of bread because you can't see through the windows. You're wrapped up tight. And so for some, it is frustrating. And I have to agree, I don't think it's a neutral. I know it's a moneymaker for HSR, but not having those windows clear takes away a lot of, I like to watch outside the windows and you really don't see much. So you play on everybody's on their phone while they're on the bus. The change to 43, I know Nick was going to look into it. I will do it offline. But I have to say how incredibly disappointed I am that the Stone Church run where we added First Road West, Green Mountain, Upper Centennial, and Mud, to get to that neighborhood, specifically to get those kids and families on the buses. And now 2 years later, we've canceled it. That's incredibly disappointing. I don't believe the neighbors in that area were asked their opinion, and this came as a complete surprise to me. After advocating for 4 years to extend that service, now we're retracting it. With regards to Upper Stony Creek by, I guess it's the Fortinos area, you're showing there now that instead of the trans cab, there's you call for a bus. But that's an area that was serviced by Stone Church. It's an area that was serviced by Rymal and Centennial. And yet the area that is outside of the urban boundary, heading east, who have asked for bus service like that, they don't have it. Again, a mistake. And last, to Mayor Horvath, I couldn't agree more with you with your frustration about the bus barn. So if you can let us know what actually happened. Don't know how anyone could design a giant bus barn and forget ventilation. That just shocks me. Don't know how that happened, but we shouldn't be the ones that are paying that price because someone failed to put that ventilation in the system. So if you could share that with us, I share your frustration. I was just blown away by that. I think the overall improvements that we are making over 7 years, if the stars align, will increase the ridership. But this is a tough city to increase ridership on. We've had a challenge for years. We have increased expenditures. Used to frustrate, I think it was Councillor Ferguson, who didn't really agree with your position, Councillor Cassar, in terms of adding more buses to Ancaster. But he would get very frustrated that we were spending all this money in increases and not getting an increase in ridership. And he would track that year after year. So I'm hoping beyond hope that this will actually help us increase ridership. And I'm hoping beyond hope that once the LRT is in place, that will also increase the connectivity for residents to get down to that LRT. Because quite frankly, in Upper Stony Creek, they don't have access except through buses. So if they don't have good connectivity and convenience, they're not going to ride the LRT. So that's on us as a municipality to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing as there are no other speakers, we do already have a mover and a seconder. So may I have your vote electronically to receive the presentation and approve the recommendations within this report? Vote is up.
Sorry, Chair, can I ask a question just on the vote? Because
Sure.
I know last year during the budget, I was called out for voting in favor of something and then going against at the budget. All we're doing here is referring this to the 2026 budget, right?
It is a acceptance of, sorry, let me just get the wording on this correct.
Just trying to prepare myself for the shots.
So there are A, B, C, D, and A is recommendation is this to be authorized and directed to take all necessary steps on the HSR next, that transit service standards be approved, that corporate real estate be directed and authorized to secure all of the property requirements, and that the city manager be directed to advocate for further funding from other orders of government.
So the way I understand it, then this is not going to the 2026 budget, it's getting approved today?
Yes,
So there is no deliberation on this during the budget?
no, I don't think so, but I'll double check
Can I
with.
just get confirmation for someone? Because that's very different than everything else we do.
Okay.
Everything usually gets deferred to the budget process, so
I will ask GM Zagaric, please.
thank you.
Through the chair, my interpretation is if this committee approves the recommendations before you and council approves these recommendations, we will amend the 2026 preliminary budget to reflect these changes, not only for 2026, but for future years. And then those will be before committee and council and the mayor through the balance of our 2026 budget process. So what is before you is recommending that the HSR next, if approved, be reflected in our 2026 to 2028 budget forecast.
Councillor?
So if it gets approved today, am I bothering you?
Sorry.
Oh, I hear someone humming a tune while I'm asking a question. This gets approved today, it goes in the budget, and it's already in the budget.
Yep.
So then we would have to bring an amendment at the budget to change, amend this presentation. Is that what I'm understanding?
I want to say yes, but I will I will ask GM Zagaric to confirm.
Through the chair, that's true. That's correct.
So from my understanding, it's a strategy as a whole that will be reflected in a multi-year budget. So this is in replacement of the last 10-year transit strategy. Hope that's a little
Yeah,
clearer.
it's just, I didn't know that up until right now. Good thing I asked.
All right, thank you. Another question from Councillor Clark, please.
So I was also under the impression that this would be headed to the budget, and that would give me an opportunity to talk to staff about what's happening with the Stone Church run. So based on what I'm reading right now, if I vote for this, I'm voting to reduce services in Ward 9 that I advocated for 4 years to increase.
Manager Nick, please.
Through the chair, appreciate the chance to comment on it. The service isn't being removed. I spoke out of turn earlier. The first 3 years all have changes to the 43 Stone Church. We're planning to consolidate that into year 3. That also gives us a chance to review it and see if there is any larger loss, like you've noted.
Okay, so now I can't find the exact area, but in the report, it shows that it's coming out. It's very clear in the actual report that you are removing that.
Oh, could you introduce yourself, please?
Through the chair, Jason Mannerheim, Manager of Scheduling and Infrastructure. Councilor Clark, I think I had stepped out of the room when you had made your comment maybe earlier. So I'm very familiar with the area that you're talking about. I believe it's Green Mountain Road, First Road West. So the service is not being removed from there. It's being replaced by the Route 34 Mohawk. And so the service will actually run from that area down the mountain to Eastgate Square to connect with the LRT in the future. And then as it goes westerly across the mountain, it will go across Mohawk Road into Lime Ridge Mall and then over to the Meadowlands. The Route 43 looks to be, which is the current Stone Church, looks to be truncated at Heritage Green. And then the Route 36 Rymel Road will go through some of the areas that the current 43 also services. So it's not a removal of service from that area. It's a replacement of multiple routes with different destinations. And then your last comment was about MyRide replacing service. It actually overlays the entire area, providing a first mile, last mile solution. So where you currently are served in that area by one route, it looks like there's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 routes with the addition of MyRide.
I'm trying to find where it says in the actual report.
If I could refer you to Appendix A, page 6 of 129. If you have that in front of you, there's a route map of the future network, which shows all of the service in the Stony Creek Mountain area.
So you're telling me that this report does not indicate in any way, shape, or form that the Stone Church route is being removed from First Road West, Green Mountain Road, Mud Street, and Centennial?
For clarification, the route itself is being removed, but the service to that area is still going to be maintained via the Route 34 Mohawk route.
So the exact bus route that we had added is now going to have the Mohawk on it?
It's going to be modified. So the current, as you know, the 43 route today will be truncated between Heritage Green and Meadowlands. The rest of it will remain the same. The Route 34 Mohawk is going to come through Heritage Green, and it's going to be extended across Highland Road, and then it'll go north. It'll go up First Road West over to Heritage Green, and then it'll actually go down Centennial to Eastgate Square for that connection you mentioned to the future LRT. And then the Route 36 Rymel will go through Heritage Green, and it'll cut through Isaac Brock, Gordon Drummond, that area, and connect up to the Elfrida hub. And the Route 4 Bayfront will circulate around the Mud Paramount Valley Park area, and will take you directly down the Red Hill to the Parkdale hub. And then the Route 40 E-line will operate from Heritage Green across Rymel and down Upper Centennial as well. And then the entire area will be blanketed by MyRide for first mile, last mile connections.
Thank you. That's very helpful, because you can't get that from this report. It's 129 pages, and you have to read one page and say, don't forget that, because now in year 4, it's changing. And so I'm venting my frustrations at reading that report. It was really challenging. So I appreciate that improvement. And so finally to Mr. Zagaric, and I've heard back and forth about the budget now. So what's the increase or decrease to the budget if we approve year one of the 7-year plan?
Through the chair, the outlook that was presented to committee last week would be revised to show a reduction relative to what was presented last week of 300,000. So effectively the global 8.9 would be global 8.88.
Thank you. And the increase in service, FTEs, it looked like you were increasing by 37 FTEs in year one. Is that still happening?
Through the chair, year one of HSR Next has 37 FTE. However, year 10 of the 10-year local strategy, which is already there, has 43. So there's a slight reduction.
So year 10 is covering year one of year 7? Or there were 43 in year 10 and 37 in year 1?
Through the chair, the outlook that was presented to committee last week reflected year 10 as this report wasn't before committee and council yet. So we assumed the 43 in the FTE forecast in the outlook. If this were to be approved at committee and council through the balance of the budget process, we would show that 43 reduced to 37. So still an increase, but fewer FTEs.
And how do we reconcile that with the decision of this council to say no increases to FTEs in this next budget?
So through the chair, we would present this through the preliminary budget of staff, and then that would be considered by the mayor and by council through the balance of your deliberations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Crutch, please. Oh, wait. I do have a speakers list that just started. So Councillor Taddison first before Councillor Crutch. Councillor Taddison, please.
I'll cede to Councillor Crutch right now because I think he's going to address something Councillor Clark just said.
Councillor Crutch, please.
I enjoy the mind reading. I was going to mention something that Councillor Clark just said, which was that the council hasn't made a decision not to have FTEs. We've asked the mayor, we made a request to the mayor for that, just to be clear, right? So that's where we stand with that. But that wasn't my question. My question was specifically about something I forgot to ask with respect to the bus wraps. How much revenue do we make for bus wraps? That's important to know, I think, publicly. I don't really know that number offhand. And curious to know how much we're making from that advertising revenue.
Through the chair, I believe we're earning about 250,000 annually for the bus wraps.
Right, so if I do my math correctly, we could still save money, get rid of the bus wraps, and still be under the budget this year if we wanted to do that. So interesting. Thanks for that number. I appreciate it because I think it is important for people to have a quality experience when they're riding the bus and not to feel like it's this dark, caged-in space. I also, think it's nice for people to actually see the buses that we spend time maintaining and painting and making look good. So I'll leave that for now, but I'll be back about something about that later. Thanks.
Councillor Taddison, please.
I just wanted to refocus on a point that the mayor was making earlier about the team being open to speed up the implementation if necessary based on data. But my wish is that, and I heard some councillors here, they're looking for actually like concrete resolutions to the plan going forward on certain routes. For me, what I would be looking for is, and asking for, is there some fluidity based on data? And like if we collect information that says a route is not viable and a route is not being utilized to its best capacity, can we shut that route down and open it up in a different way? That's what I think you're saying in this presentation, but I'm not necessarily hearing that reflected in some of the comments I'm hearing from around the table here. Could you verify if there's that ability to, your department has that nimbleness of changing? Because when I spoke to to your department earlier. They've said, oh, counselor, when we make one little change, there's repercussions across the whole system, and that's why we can't make any changes, like, say, adding a little route to Garth Road to come up to service the people on 20 Road, because it'll have effects on the whole system, and we can't do that, counselor. But I just heard the mayor ask for, and what I'm asking for is, can we have those little changes that can make the system more nimble and more reflective of what is needed in Hamilton?
So through the chair, as I mentioned, we did parcel these changes in a way that, again, are all linked together and are able to be changed once, can minimize as much confusion for customers as possible, and also consider the resources that are required for adding the service. We, on an annual basis, will be looking at what we are recommending, what the parcel has recommended we do. We'll look at how the service to date has been operating. We'll take into consideration the needs of customers. We are going to continue to do outreach from customers. So there will be, again, some options to look at high demand if it's within our capabilities and resources to pull things forward. We will if we can. We know everybody wants it tomorrow, and some of it's not possible, but we will try and move things ahead as quickly as possible.
So final question, and sorry to belabor the point. If I support this today, does that mean that the Binbrook bus issue is put to rest, in the sense of, if we collect data and it shows that there's support, that I'm not going to get, and if I'm here or not, whether the council, whether it's me or, say, a new councillor, would say, oh, sorry, this was not put in the plan 10 years ago and you're stuck. Will the city say here now, or would city staff, your department, say here and now that you will consider evidence, and not if you can, but if it's overwhelmingly supported, that you would make changes to support buses to Binbrook if that's what the community wants?
Through the chair, any additions to Binbrook, we would support. It would require additional resources and buses outside of what is being contemplated in HSR Next. It would be an additional cost to the levy to provide those resources.
And I understand that, but you just said that you would make adjustments to the whole system. And so what if there are certain areas in the system that are underutilized? Couldn't we transfer those resources out to service a broader and growing, expanding, possibly urban boundary?
Through the chair, as we move through this implementation, I can't say with certainty that we would find routes that would require us to remove, that would provide enough resources to allocate to Binbrook.
Fair enough, and in all due respect, it is hypothetical at this point because we don't have that data, and I'll promise my residents to work at collecting that data in the next year or so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Okay. So I hope we're all clear on what the activity is, because we do already have a mover and a seconder. And again, looking for your vote electronically, please. Vote is up. Councillor Beat is a yes. Vote carries 14-0. Thank you, committee. Let's move on to 8.1, which is the course. Sorry.
My apologies. Councillor Spatafor, it shows you as marked as absent. Do you want me to retake it? Yeah. I see that, so it was probably my mistake, and I apologize. So I'm trying to correct it now. How would you like me to mark your vote, or would you like us to retake it? Thank you.
15-0, thank you. All right, we are on to 8.1, which is correspondence from Anthony Markov, the Hamilton District Labor Council. This is respecting the previous report. I do need a mover and a seconder to receive this item, please. Councillor Pauls and Councillor Alex Wilson. This is a show of hands vote. May I have your vote, please? Looks like everyone. That carries. Thank you. Seeing as there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 11:50 a.m. Thank you, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your day.